Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am here today with DM Bluddworth, also known as Richard. We're going to be talking about TTRPG stuff. Richard, how you doing today, bud?
Oh, great. How are you doing? Thanks for the invite and hello, everyone. Pleasure to meet you.
Excellent. So, Richard, tell me, how did you first get into the tabletop RPG scene?
I first was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons in either 1977 or 1978. Long time ago, so I'm not quite sure. My friend Shayna introduced me to it. He invited myself and three other friends over to his home one time, and he said, "Hey, let's try out this new game." And I still don't recall. It was probably the Holmes edition that we played, and the reason why I say that is because we were playing it for quite a bit. I went through quite a few characters, and at one point, when the AD&D Monster Manual came out, he let me play a lizard man fighter named Dat. So that was probably my third character. So that's when I began playing, was in 77, 78, played through 89, and then, you know, life in the military and, everything came up, and I took a bit of a hiatus from tabletop role-playing games for, quite some time, actually, probably about 20 years.
Okay, it's a long time. You started
Yeah.
before I did. I think I started right around 1982. I would have been
Mhm.
8 years old. Now,
Yeah, 82 was probably well, I was probably 15. Yeah, 82 was about 15, 14, 15.
now I've got all this gray. Um, so who or what inspired you to become a GM or DM?
I actually started dungeon mastering or game mastering in probably around 1980 or 81. Um, we had a second dungeon master who was running AD&D exclusively. And so I probably ran a couple of D&D. I had Mulvey D&D, so I ran that a few times. And then I started exclusively running Call of Cthulhu. And I ran that for about a year or two. And then I started mixing in Twilight 2000, Villains of Vigilante, second edition, TSR's Conan. And we really mixed it up quite a bit. We played, our group played about 5 to 6 days a week. And it was 3-4 hours every single day, and probably longer on Saturdays. So yeah, we got a lot of gaming in during that first 10 to 12 years.
It sounds like it. So, do you have any other geeky hobbies or just role playing?
Right now, just role playing. I mean, I have or kind of role playing adjacent. I have dabbled a bit with painting miniatures. I'm horrible at it, but I'm not a miniatures player. I don't do the war gaming or whatnot. Back in the day, we played quite a bit of Avalon Hill. So those kinds of tabletop games, we certainly played those as well. And then video gaming throughout. And I was very, very big on MMOs. That basically took me from 2000 to 2015, was nothing but MMOs until I got burnt out from those, and came back to tabletop role playing in around 2015.
What was your favorite MMO?
Boy, I loved Star Wars Galaxies when it first came out. Up until like Jump to Lightspeed. I started I started doing quite a bit with Bethesda, and I was actually an official moderator on their website, where their boards, actually, they were message boards back then. And they were preparing to take Sea Dogs into an MMO. and that kind of fell through with them because then they switched over to Pirates of the Caribbean when the first movie of Pirates of the Caribbean came out, and instead they kind of left that behind. And I believe Akela purchased Sea Dogs, and then they started working on Pirates of the Burning Sea, and it
Okay.
was heavy. I was in a I was in the second week of Pirates of the Burning Seas Alpha. So, I always tell the story. I was like, I was sailing ships before there was water, because they didn't even have the water graphics. And it was myself and the developers, and then one other person in my community was also involved at that point. Then we shifted over to Eve Online. I played Eve Online for about 12 years, and that was another big, heavy one. Um, if I had, I really couldn't tell you like to pick a favorite. It's almost like the same thing I had with TTRPGs, is that I have a favorite of each genre, and so that's kind of how I look at gaming. Is I've always loved a wide variety of games, but usually every single genre represented.
Okay. I only ask because my MMO of choice is Ultima Online.
Which is one of the few I don't think I've ever actually played. I missed Ultima Online. That I believe was in the late 90s. Um
Well,
and
Ultima's the first MMO, if you don't count EverQuest, but
mhm,
and I hold everything else. I use it as a guidepost for all other MMOs.
mhm,
The graphics on it, yeah, they're way behind, but the gameplay is best in my opinion.
mhm.
All right, let's get back to the topic at hand. What's your
Okay.
favorite RPG system as a DM or as a player?
Currently, right now, my favorite RPG system as a game master is Castles and Crusades.
Okay.
Troll Lord Games, Castles and Crusades. I literally just started my newest campaign in that yesterday. So last night we just started running it, and prior to that, I ran AD&D First Edition for 2 years and a month. So basically, 108 weekly sessions, very, very consistent straight through. Same group of players for 95% of it, and a maximum of 10 players, at any given time.
That's a lot of players at that table.
Yeah, my current Castles and Crusades table has 10 players as well.
Wow. The biggest table I ever ran was 9, and that was uh horrible.
Yeah, it's something that prior to having 10 players at the table, I've always had like 5, 6, maybe 7. So when I first took on 10, it was actually 12. It was supposed to be 12, and then 2 just never showed up after the session 0. So it's like, all right, fine, I'll roll with 10. And I was very, very lucky to have a group of players who were very experienced players. And they just meshed, we all meshed as a group right from the get-go. I mean, it really worked well. And if it wasn't for the quality of my players, it would have never worked. You have to have very skilled, and then just their personalities as well.
Yeah,
The
I can see where that would
personalities
make
have to work. Yeah.
yeah, I can see where that would make a difference. At the time that I ran 9, 2 of them had played before. Everybody else was pretty much brand new,
Hmm.
and it was just a nightmare. My current campaign, I run 6 people in one, and then 6 in another.
Yeah.
Um, Now, do you prefer to use do you use printed settings or do you homebrew your own?
I with almost everything that I do, I will heavily homebrew things. So even if I run like I ran Keep on the Borderlands. right? And
Classic.
I essentially used the maps, and everything else around it was just, was changed up significantly. So anytime that I use anything, whether it be the Greyhawk, the World of Greyhawk, that was my AD&D campaign was set in Greyhawk. And I just heavily modify it and everything. So even if it is coming out of the box or out of a slipcase or whatever, it that's not how it's going to ultimately run and read and such. It's going to become ours as we're going through it.
Okay. Okay. So, in your opinion, what makes a good game a good campaign?
Well, a good campaign, you have to let it breathe, and you have to let it evolve over time. And it's I did very, very little steering in my most recent campaign. I let my players make their choices, make their decisions and go, in whatever direction they kind of look to go in. Um, I would attach consequences for what they did and consequences for what they didn't do, what they chose not to do. And I just kept on impressing them with the idea, that concept that, everything that you're doing is important. Everything that you kind of leave to the side, it's still moving. It's still doing what it was going to do. And they became very aware of that. And like I said, they started to understand that to the point that um I never had to steer them. They would know what was important, or have a general idea of what was important, and then they would just do it. And so that, I think, is probably the best advice that I can, give to, like, say, a new game master out there who's looking to start their first campaign. uh Let the players just make those decisions early on, and don't you know don't pressure them to go in any particular direction. Just let it happen, and eventually it'll pick up its own groove. And then you'll find ways of just hinting at them, where certain responsibilities might be for them to, or certain interesting points that they might look into.
Okay,
Mm.
that it all makes sense. I run my table pretty much the same way or similar. Anyway, now are you a full prep, minimal prep, or no prep DM?
Um, I do more thinking than I do prepping, so I'm thinking about the next session. And I start thinking, because I know my players, very well. Um, I kind of know where they're going to go. Now, my players are now all playing with different characters in a different game system. So, and I've already had some say, oh no, I'm playing this character completely different. So now I'm sitting back and I'm going to wait to see how they kind of, differentiate themselves from their former characters. And so um, it's again, it's just an amount of prep that's more in my head, and more like they'll have I'll have in mind something like the dilemma that they're going to face, or the risk that they might face, and then just see how it plays out. And if they come across it, they come across it. If they don't, I'll create something on the fly, um, that keeps on feeding into it. So you have to be able to improvise,
Mm-hmm.
and very, very quickly sometimes with what's going on at your table. You have to read your table as well. So that's another important skill to develop.
Excuse me. You're not wrong. My own personal style is I'll have an idea of what I want the overall theme to be, and then I improvise everything else. But as the players make decisions, because I learned early on that if you try to plan for what a group of players is going to do, you're just wasting your time because they will
Yeah,
come up with some weird shit.
yeah, They'll. I mean, like last night's session was our first session. They're all first level characters, which is another thing I strongly recommend.
Oh, always.
Always start your characters with start your characters off with first level or zero if they even have zero level for the system you're using. And when the players come and they say, well, I have this in my backstory, I will always remind them, I'm more concerned about your forward story. I want to know what's going to happen from this point moving forward. I said, I'll hear you out. I'll pay a little bit of attention to your character's backstory, but that's just so I can get to know the character and the way that you're going to play them. You might not actually see or do anything that's involved with that backstory, because moving forward, that's more important. Especially with a large table. You have 10 players, you do not have time to involve everyone's backstory. It's a much more efficient way, and I think much more rewarding way to focus on their relationships with each other's characters moving forward.
Now, with a group that size, you must have a few personalities that occasionally clash.
Again, I was extremely fortunate. I had a couple of players that fairly early on. That's when I had the changes, like in changes in roster. So by week 4, I lost 3 players and immediately picked up 3 more players. So it was a very quick turnaround. And one player I lost because his job situation changed. So understandable. The other 2 players, they just had it was an issue over the way one player described his own character. All right. And he described his own character as a toon. And the other player got like really upset about that because he felt it was bringing an MMO, mentality into the game. And he literally said, either that guy has to go or I'm quitting. And I don't play that kind of a ultimatum type of thing, and so I was like, if you feel that you have to leave, then I can't stop you from doing so. And then the other guy ended up leaving the following week because his job situation changed too. So it was kind of, but that was it. That was week 4. And the rest of the group made it through week 108. So it wasn't a really big issue. And then one of those players that left back then is in my current game now. I told him, I was like, I don't have a problem with having you come in and just play along and just enjoy the ride of having 9 other players, and just leave that kind of stuff out. Don't worry about it.
Sounds like you got lucky with your group.
Oh yes, very lucky. My group is 9 men, 1 woman. So it wasn't as mixed as I've had previously in the past. But 3 are military veterans. Plus myself, I enjoy playing with military veterans. I think that we do bring something to a group dynamic to the table, and so it's it's something that I'm always hopeful for. Like I don't put out there, I'm looking for this kind of player, I'm saying it's like I have 10 slots, and the first 10 people that sit down, that's who I'm playing with. So I don't have any kind of a litmus test or a request for any particular type of player. But you know, I've been lucky. Like you said, I've been very, very lucky with the groups that I've had, and this past group has been phenomenal.
Sounds good to me. Tell me, do you build your own homebrew worlds?
I've done it a few times. I ran a D&D basic campaign just from levels 1 through 4, and that I created my own world. I ported in deities from Robert E. Howard's Hyboria, so I looked up those. I wanted those deities in there, and I created the map using what's it called, Agazar's
Yeah.
like a map builder thing, and put that in there, and I just started just creating. I create the first town that they start in. It's always a very small town, and then I just kind of build it out from there.
Okay.
And we played for, I want to say we played for about 6 months. Um, before, once they started hitting level 4, and I had an issue with a player in that game as well, who he just couldn't manage not being the focus. Let's just put it that way. He was one of the spotlight players.
Diva.
And so yeah, he wanted that focus on him all the time. And so when he departed, and then we just kind of fell apart. I really started my AD&D campaign, and 2 of the players from that group followed me to my AD&D campaign. One of them couldn't handle, and he was one of the early dropouts. He couldn't handle a party of 10. Just too much for him, to manage. And so he departed as well. So, and the other one was with me. So I have one player that's been with me for almost 3 years.
Nice. Oh, let's see. How do you draw your players into the immersion at the table? Do you use like sound effects or music or anything?
No, I don't do any of that. I was thinking of it because I was thinking, as I was driving home from work tonight, and I was thinking, and there was something one of my players said last night. And he had been with me for 2 years. I have like 3 new players in the group, total. And he said at one point, he says, because I was having trouble with Roll20, and it was, it just wasn't meshing right. I was transporting characters from from the catalog on the side over to the map, and it wasn't transferring their stats. It wasn't keeping any of that. And I was like, it's just a glitch with Roll20. And so I'm there fiddling around with it. And one of my senior players, he said to the new player, he says, "Oh, don't worry." He says, "He's going to say exactly what is going on. He's going to tell us all exactly what he's fiddling around with." And then I heard him, and then I said, "Oh, I just have to reset all your numbers here." I said, "This thing is not working right," and blah, blah, blah. And this was during the game session, but it just wasn't transferring over. And then, I caught myself, and I was like, he just called me out for breaking immersion like that, and going into the nuts and bolts of running Roll20, which is glitchy as hell. Sometimes, it's like, and when I was driving home tonight, I was thinking, I was like, what would I call that? And I call that situational immersion. Um, when we're playing, my players are immersed. I'm immersed. Everything is going on. When we're not actually gaming, when we're not actually role playing our characters and describing the scenery, when when we're doing anything else on the side, including some, banter that may come up, we slip out of that immersion. We can take care of a technical glitch or whatever, and then slip right back into immersion as soon as we're back gaming again. So when we're gaming, we're immersed. But if we have to break that immersion to take care of something, we're going to take care of it, and then we slip right back into it again. And so, I don't know if that's necessarily I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. The fact that, as long as you can get back immersed into what you're doing when you're playing the game, then I don't think that that's a problem. But I know some would probably say, oh, that's horrible. You should never break immersion. We're all adults. We're all sitting at a table. It's going to happen sometimes that you have to break, you have to break away from the game because real life is happening around you at the same time. So I don't know if that answers your question about immersion or not, but that's where I kind of lean.
It's a good answer, bud. Do you have any NPCs that your party's particularly fond of?
Yes, what I did in the early part of my previous campaign was that they had a patron that was going to kind of assist them along the way. They had a contact that they met from time to time. They had some they had some fairly interesting NPCs, and I made sure that their NPCs that they did encounter that ultimately became rivals, that they were very interesting, and the rivalry was something that I think ultimately they looked back on and said, they were happy for it, including their like enemy NPCs, like these people that they really hated, and they wanted to get, they wanted to ultimately, capture them, kill them, do whatever. And there was always that, I could tell that they really enjoyed those NPCs. And I think that's really, really important, to have them, not just see an NPC once and then it disappears and it's from, and remember that NPC is going to grow over time, along with the rest of the thing. So like I said, the world is always moving. So my players actually, at one point, they charmed an orc in the Caves of Chaos. So they charmed an orc in the Caves of Chaos, and then in the Caves of Chaos, they came across a helmet of alignment change, and so they slapped this thing on the orc, and so he became neutral. And this orc traveled with them for almost, I'd say, almost a little over a year. So a little over a year, they had this orc that was kind of like their, he took care of their wagons. They did, all of this thing, and he traveled with them. They gave him a, +1 chainmail armor. He had a +1 hand axe. They started putting, a ring of protection on him. They were really treating him well. Once in a while, he went into combat with them because, as far as he knew at the time, I mean, he was a neutral orc. He was just and I started leveling him up. I started making him, he was ultimately like a fighter, 5th level fighter, for the orc. So he was, he became an NPC / PC kind of character. Then at one point they came across an effect that was like very much like a deck of many things. And one of the clerics in the group became a neutral evil from this deck. So he was, cursed and became neutral evil. And so the way that he responded to that alignment change, and we did this obviously secretly, he went and he took the alignment, the helm of alignment change off the orc, and the orc then killed two people in the tavern that they were that they were staying at, and when the tavern keeper found out that it was the orc that killed these two young people that were in the place, in the employ of the tavern, he demanded compensation. He demanded that they atone for the actions of this, and they started hunting. They had to hunt down and kill this orc to bring him back, and they were really like pulled on it. They were like, wow, this is a real dilemma, and then the whole time the paladin in the group, he was saying, I've been saying this over and over and over again. This is a bad idea. This is going to turn bad. He says we should have just killed that orc when, as soon as, his charm wore off or whatever. And, so he was the one that just kept on saying over and over again, we got to stop making this mistake, and we had to stop trying to, befriend and control and do these things, because every time they tried, especially with the charm spell, I don't think they'll ever cast a charm spell in Castles and Crusades campaign now, but so they get connected to their their NPCs, and it's something that I like to develop. And so it's something I encourage you to do, is to not just give them a whole bunch of NPCs, but to give them a few that they're going to invest in.
Okay, sounds good. I like that. We're running low on time because this is the free version of Zoom, and I'm poor.
Yep.
So, do you have anything in Drive-Thru RPG or DM's Guild or?
Yes, I have a few things on Drive-Thru RPG. I have so my Drive-Thru RPG is Arcel Games Publications. Or publishing, I'm sorry, Arcel Games Publishing. And it is, I have a Gangbusters adventure on there. I have 3 adventures of from Mifrog. I have an OSR tabletop pamphlet that's a free pamphlet that talks about safety tools of the OSR. Initially, that was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, but then I says, you know what, I'm going to be serious about this. I'm going to talk about what it was like to play at an old school table, and how safe they actually were, that we didn't need to utilize these safety tools. So so there's a few things on there that that I have published, and it's been a long time since I've published anything in a while. That's something else I have to get back to doing, as time permits.
Well, I will have links to your publishing page and your Twitter account in the description of the video below.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a new Twitter account, so I welcome everybody to pop in and join. Right now I'm getting a lot of sex bots on there, so it's like those are the other ones I don't follow. But yeah, it's a new account, so it's a little over 300 followers.
All right. Well, James, thanks for being on the show.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and I will look forward to catching up on the next person's, because I know you have somebody following me, so I'm going to
the next one
check
should
out
be
that
Daniel at Driving and Dragons.
Oh, okay. I follow his channel too. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right. And guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. And
thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, please like and comment, tell me what you thought. If you want to help me out, consider joining my Patreon using the link in the description. Patrons can enjoy my videos before they are released on YouTube. You can also download articles on TTRPG subjects that I have written, and I'll be posting chapters of my upcoming book, The Game Master's Guide to Crafting Legendary Worlds. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to make sure you never miss out. Don't forget to subscribe to make sure you never miss out.